Today we're going to look at our final method of completing the square. And I like this one because we're going to draw some pictures here. So, completing the square. If we were to write this as algebra tiles, I'm going to rewrite this equation here. I'm going to add 1 to this side. So I'm going to get it in the form x squared minus 4x equals 1. Now in algebra tiles, this is our x squared tile. And if we have negative 4x's, I could put negative 2x here and negative 2x here. And this equals just a 1. So as you guys can see, it's not quite a complete square. So if we were to factor this, this would be x times x gives us x squared. X times negative 2 gives us negative 2x. X times negative 2 gives us negative 2x. But to complete the square, what we need to fill in right here, well, let's see, negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. But if we add 4 to one side, we have to add it to the other. So now, if we go back to the algebra, each dimension here is the same. We have x minus 2 and x minus 2. So we could write that as x minus 2 squared equals 5. So now if we were to solve that, x minus 2 squared equals 5, we did this yesterday. We took the square root, so we have x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 5. So now we have x minus 2 equals positive square root of 5. X minus 2 equals negative square root of 5. So x equals the square root of 5 plus 2. And x equals negative square root of 5 plus 2. And you could write it as 1. We could just say plus or minus the square root of 5 plus 2. So this next one here, in order to complete the square, so we're going to have to add 18 because we just want the x's on one side. So we have 3x squared plus 6x equals 18. Well, now I'm going to divide by 3 everything, and we have x squared plus 2x equals 6. So our picture, here's our x squared tile, and we have 2 x's, so 1x and 1x. This equals 6. So if we factor it, this is x and x plus 1 plus 1. But to complete the square right here, 1 times 1 is 1, so we have to add 1 to each side. So now we have x plus 1 squared equals 7. So our solution to x plus 1 squared equals 7, square root each side. We have x plus 1, x plus 1 equals the square root of 7. X plus 1 equals negative square root of 7. So if we solve it, we'd have x equals minus 1 minus 1 minus 1 minus 1 plus or minus the square root of 7 minus 1. Now you guys will start, when you start solving these, you'll be like, well, that one gets a little complicated for the square root method. And again, this is just another method. So if you had 3x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0. And you're like, oh, I can solve this with any method. I want to use the square root. 3x squared plus 4x equals 5. Well, what do we have to divide by? Divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. So now we have x squared plus 4/3 x equals 5/3. Because to use the completing the square, we have to make it so it's an x squared. Well, this one gets a lot more complicated to draw a picture of. Because what's half of 4/3? How are we going to split those into 2? And with these fractions. So this might not be one that you want to complete the square with because it gets a little complicated with a 4/3. So you could use the quadratic formula. But there's some that you look at that are just really easy to complete the square. So like 2x squared plus 8x minus 6. Well, this one's really easy, because we could rewrite it as 2x squared plus 8x equals positive 6. Everything's divisible by 2, So we have x squared plus 4x equals 3. Well, that's easy to draw a picture of. X squared, we split the 4x into 2x and 2x. That equals 3. So let's see, we have x and x plus 2 plus 2. So to fill in this little blank, that's 4. So we add 4. So now it's x plus 2 squared. Oh, that's the same one we did before, equals 7. But you can see some are easier than others to solve using the square root method.